this should have been a straightforward make and ended up as crystals, glue gun, Elmer's, UV, eco, epoxy resin, dragons and mermaid molds, florist foam, gravel and pebbles, spills, transparent pigments, acrylic paints, lots of coffee, chameleon glitter, laser glitter, skulls, sand, shells, and lights. So, this was planned to be a tray. And the idea was I was going to have a water effect tray with a water dragon on it. Quite straightforward. But then the creative brain got thinking, and this has turned into a 10-day project with lots and lots and lots of elements. So here I am, just microing this water dragon mold with blues and teal. Like I said, I wanted it to be a water dragon, so we went with these sorts of colours. And yeah, it went into chaos from here because I was staring at this tray mold and I was like, ooh, should have paid attention. Because then we spilled the micro everywhere. And it was one pain in the bum to clean up. Those were not my choice words at the time. I would not be able to put that on YouTube. So then I moved on to another dragon because I thought, oh, I'll have one dragon either end of the tray, like near the handles. Yeah. And then I'm staring at this tray mold and it's quite an irregular shape. I was like, oh, that would make a good, like, land piece. So I made my other dragon a little dragon friend. Again, sticking with the waterish theme, even though this isn't a water dragon, this is one with wings, so I'm assuming it's a land dragon. But I wanted them to be cohesive, so I've still gone with blue and I've gone with silver and a tiny bit of like a purple shift chameleon in there. Not massively in your face purple, but just to give them a bit of differentiation. Words are not my friend today. So then I'm coming to the tray and I'm looking at my transparent pigments and I was like, oh, we'll go with this one. This one's called Lake. Yeah, that's a good fit for a lake tray. And by this point, I was like, oh, I'm gonna add some micro. Let's make it sparkle. Let's get some gravel out. Let's get some pebbles and give it like a little rock edge. Yeah. So you can see how this is progressing into more than just a tray. I'll add crystals to my gravel as well because we need a sparkly lake bottom because why not? So here I am placing my gravel at the bottom of my tray to make it into a lake type scene. And still at this point in my head, this is going to be a tray with handles. So I carry on tediously placing my little pebbles all the way around the outside. And I added a few extra larger pebbles throughout the tray to add a bit more interest. Covering it with a little bit more resin so that it's, all the gravel's coated. Then I remembered I have some fake moss. Let's put some of that in there too, because it's a lake, it's going to have like moss on the rocks. Let's say, then I go back over to my dragons and I do fill them this way on purpose. If you don't fill them slowly, and then do lots of squidging and widging and tapping and squeezing, these dragons always get bubbles. So it's best to kind of fill them really slowly, let it drip into every little nook and cranny and crevice. These are fondant molds, that's why you've got the drippy bit on one side. I don't want to talk about the balloon dog. That was an extra, and me and that mold have issues. Because I had extra resin left, I put some in crystals. Then that got the creative brain ticking over again. So, so then I'm trying to work out how I can get these crystals onto the lake, because they match the lake, because it's the same resin. And then they look so pretty. Oh, these dragons, though, they did come out absolutely stunning. So I went to bed, slept on it, and then decided I'm going to add another layer of pebbles, make my tray a bit deeper because this tray mold is very shallow. So I thought if I add a layer of UV resin and then add a layer of pebbles, I can make my tray deeper. Fabulous. Yeah, that didn't work so well. So then I went in with some hot glue and I ended up with two extra layers of resin, extra layers of pebbles. So it's a really deep mold now. And then I got my florist foam out because I decided, well, I've got all this extra depth for my lake. It'd be a shame to waste it. Let's make a cave. Yeah, to say that my brain was on one this last week is an understatement. So I'm just hot gluing some florist foam together. I'm going to draw out sort of like the entrance to my cave, with my thought being that one end I'm going to have like, my water dragon, the other end I'm going to make it actually into a land dragon, and he can chill out on the top of the cave. Makes perfect sense in my head. I hacked at this florist foam. It resembled a cave-ish. Then I spray painted it black just to give me a good base. And then I painstakingly sat there and added lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pebbles to create a cave. Yeah, to create a cave. This also took a lot of hot glue. My idea was I didn't want to cover the entire cave in these pebbles. One, that would have been ridiculously heavy. Two, that would have taken forever and a day. But I also wanted to leave gaps on my cave so that I could add extra points of interest onto the cave. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of music just to watch a small amount of this process. I won't put you through the whole hour and a bit it took me to do.
Black paint on her fingers, charcoal moons on the floor, old lace pinned to the canvas, burned edges wanting more. She stitches storms in her portraits, hangs them high like quiet spells. Every frame a little portal, every color knows her well. She creates in the witch dark, no thick heart, glowing in the gloom, turns her scars into old art, hangs her heart in the middle.
Now I'm just going to paint the cave. I've gone in with a bluish grey to start with, just because I wanted to add some depth ready for the green I'm going to apply. I have also found a use for my crystals. I am going to make the inside of my cave a crystal cave, and I'm gonna make it all sparkly.
She creates in the witch dark, bare hands, ink on her teeth. Every curse that they gave her comes back as a masterpiece. Candles drip over sketchbooks, wax rivers down the spine, tea leaves stuck to the palette, old stories in every line. She hums names of her grandmother's, soft thunder in her throat, ancestral eyes in the mirror guiding every brutal stroke. She says, watch me bend this shadow, carve a doorway through the gloom. All the ghosts they tried to bury, got a front row in this room. I'm the heir to every omen.
Now I've been in with some paint for the base of the moss, I'm now just going to put some Elmer's glue on, brush it over, and then I'm putting some powdered grass on the top because I wanted a differentiation between the grass top and the moss that would be on sort of like the sides of the cave. Yeah, a lot of thought went into all of these different aspects. And I kid you not when I say this kept me up at night thinking about all these different things I could do to it and add to it. And this was by far my biggest project I have ever attempted, not in size, but in terms of the number of elements that all come into play to create one piece. And although a lot of these little bits and pieces were a faff, I don't think I've enjoyed a project this much in years. The genuine excitement to get my hands on my crafting stuff and the ideas that have been flowing since, I feel like this has lit a spark in me for a whole other realm of mixed media that I am definitely going to be diving into again. So, anyway, back to what I'm doing. Sorry, I'm waffling. Back to what I'm doing. So, I've added some grass onto the extra bits of cave that I think would have grass on. I have also taken some of my little plastic crystals, added a load of Elmer's glue to them so that I can add crystally bits like to certain cracks on the outside of the cave. And I'm also going to use them on the inside of the cave too. Again, I'm just adding so many different elements of interest so that every time you look, you see something different. I wanted it all to be cohesive and magical, and yeah, it reignited a lot of happy memories for myself. I've always been a big mystical, magical, and to be doing and creating a piece like this, just I'm not an emotional person, but I'm actually welling up. I've had so much fun and I have loved every minute of this project. So then I decided that, my cave looked empty. It needs a mermaid. So I used some eco resin, which I forgot to film, but this is long enough anyway, so you don't really need to see me pouring some eco resin into a mold. She came out beautifully. And I only had one bubble underneath her chin, which I just popped a tiny bit of UV resin on, and you wouldn't even know it was there. So I'm just going to paint her. She gets a base coat, and then I just go back in with more colours, just to add the depth to her that I wanted her to have. I've also gone in after these layers with some more metallic iridescent type ones because I wanted it to sparkle. And there's not enough sparkle in this project, so let's add some laser glitter and some chameleon glitter. I decided that she needed a laser glitter highlight, like a strip in her hair. And then I decided that one wasn't enough, so let's give her like three. I think as well, one of the things I've enjoyed the most with this is seeing the impact it's had on my eldest daughter. Now she's 7, and she saw my cave and she had to make one herself, and watching her creativity flow was just, yeah, there aren't even words for that as a parent, watching her enjoyment as well. And then the chameleon glitter, I painstakingly took one single piece of glitter at a time and placed them. I didn't do her entire tail in them, but I placed them sort of sporadically across so that in different lights you got just a hint of that chameleon. This took way longer than I care to admit to, I'm not gonna lie. And lots and lots and lots of coffee was had throughout this whole project. So now we're actually back to the tray itself. And I'm adding just another layer of resin. There's nothing fancy about it. I've added some more transparent pigment, this time in teal. And I didn't mix it properly because I was hoping to get a swirl effect. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Now we're starting to add more bits. More bits. You know, what else could the project need? Let's add lights. This was painstaking. I should have put the lights in first. I should have UV'd them and then poured the resin. But hindsight, I would say I know for next time. I don't think I'll be making another one. This is going to be a one-off piece. I did eventually get there with the lights. It just took longer than it should have done. So then I've also added a skull in down the end. That's where my little lake dragon's going to go, my water dragon. And I put some Mylar flakes on top of the lights because it gives a lovely iridescence to the light it's emitting. Yes, the lights do stay on. Yes, I checked them a ridiculous amount of times throughout the remainder of this. So just put the Mylar flakes in. I'm then going to go in and add a little bit of sand. Yes, I'm very aware this isn't enough sand, but it was more for me to get an idea of how much sand I want. Adding some shells in because you know mermaids need shells. Why not? And it's a lake type thing. I'm not really sure what it is. I don't really think I can call it a lake anymore at this point. It's my lake. It's my magical mermaid dragon lake. That's what I'm going with. Then I think I've added these little crystals in. I just want everything about the mermaid to be sparkly. I want her to be magical and like, you know, it's like her little treasure trove, that type of thing. Now we're back to more fake moss. This is quite a bright green type of moss, and it's not like moss. It's quite bushy almost. It's the only way I know how to describe it. And I've got this out and I've mixed it in with some UV resin simply because I realised that the resin wasn't opaque enough to hide the hot glue that was holding all of my pebbles and all of my resin in. So I thought, oh, if I go around the edge with this moss, it will disguise the hot glue, was basically the plan. And it worked. And I did go back after I'd used my torch with my UV lamp and cured it all properly. Yes, I checked the lights again. Time for a little bit more resin. We're going to add the sand in. This is quite a thick, clumpy consistency, which is what I wanted. I didn't want it to move too much. It moved a lot more than I thought it was going to. So, yeah, I'm then adding some Teexpert blue with a little bit of like a starry sky pigment. I think this one come from Timu. I think. And I'm just doing it really sort of gently, one side at a time, just trying to judge where it's moving to. I don't want it to move too much, so I just keep watching and babysitting. And then I add a little bit more blue, a little bit more sand, till it sits where I want it to. Checking the lights again. Oh dear. Now it is time for my last layer of resin. And I am going in really gently because I don't want it to be too thick. And this layer is for texture. Because I didn't get the swirls I wanted in the previous layer, I am going to use this Ziploc bag to make not waves, more ripples. I just wanted texture in the water. I didn't want it to be flat. And I like the Ziploc bags just because they're thicker than cling film and you can push the little bubbles out. That is so satisfying. And I've cut round the bag just so that it doesn't get in the way of the little crystal and the mermaid. And you can see me just pushing out those little bubbles. And I will just leave it. I leave it flat for about, I'd say about 2 hours. Then I come back in and I give it its texture. And then I get to take it off the next day. and one little bit got under. One. There's always one bit. There has to be one bit. I thought I was gonna like yank the crystal out at one point, but nothing. A quick pair of tweezers didn't fix. I just couldn't pick it up with my sausage fingers. This video is part of the Friendship Express collaboration, and the playlist for all the fabulous people that participate every week will be in my description. Now we need a huge drum roll for this fabulous demold. It's so exciting. I'm not quite sure why I left this footage in, really, because it doesn't show anything. It's just taking it out of where it's just been chilling. This bit is exciting. Putting it all together and watching my vision come to life was brilliant. So I've just used hot glue to start with around the edge. My finger is there because I need to know where it's got to go to. So it goes on, and then I can put the cave on the top. I do then go in with some UV resin to secure it all together after I've got sort of like it in place where I want it to go. Yes, the lights are on again because I'm really paranoid about them not working. Once it's all secured back in with the UV resin as well, I'm then going in with my hot glue and some pebbles just as a gap filler. There were some gaps. Obviously, it's not going to be completely cohesive. But after I'd filled the little gaps, you couldn't really tell that it wasn't one piece anyway. I did then go on just to paint the stones around the edge. And then here is the finished piece. I love it. Like, I really do. What do you think of my absolute chaos? And if you have made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you. Thank you very, very much. And if you're not subscribed already, please do hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you all so, so much. And thank you for watching. That is all for today. Bye for now.